What's happening to America right now? If this is some kind of warning, what is God trying to tell us? Those questions hit hard, like a scream in the middle of the night. When nature gets furious, storms rage in, and it feels like they're about to swallow up the whole country. Can you feel it? That uneasy feeling creeping in? Like something really big is coming? From the tornadoes ripping through parking lots in Dallas, tossing cars around like toys, the sky over Iowa turning dark and eating up the light, twisters roaring like monsters, cranes in Houston getting flung around like feathers, Miami shaking as people get swept away by the wind, New Orleans getting hit with violent shaking from ground to sky, strange sounds in Kansas like metal scraping along, and in North Carolina, familiar roads turning into raging floodwaters. These moments aren't just random accidents. They're whispering a scary message from above. But what is that message? Let's look closer at each storm, because this might be the final roar before the end of days. 1. A tornado dragging cars around like toys in a parking lot. Just picture a fierce wind suddenly flipping over ordinary cars that seem harmless, tearing apart the calm in just a few breaths, turning a familiar parking lot into a deadly playground. It all happened so fast that nobody had time to react, like a breaking news story that exploded out of nowhere, where nature doesn't warn anymore, but strikes without mercy. And right then, we start to really feel one thing. We're smaller than we like to think. Dallas, Texas, a place that's no stranger to tornadoes, got hit hard when huge wind columns swept through. Wind speeds were recorded hitting up to 200 miles per hour at times, strong enough to bend every safety limit we'd trusted. Those parking lots, tied to everyday life, in a split second became the battleground between people and power from the sky. The tornado charged in like a missile, sweeping away cars weighing nearly 2 tons, lifting them off the ground and sliding them hundreds of feet as if they had no weight at all. Windshields shattered, bodies twisted, metal crashing made sharp, panicked noises that echoed like hopeless cries for help. When you see those images, nobody needs to explain. This wasn't a normal wind anymore. That moment left witnesses frozen, hearts pounding, the usual sense of safety completely gone. In the chaos, a quiet thought creeps in. If everyday things like cars can be dragged around so easily, where do we stand against this power? There's something beyond science, beyond plain logic. The Bible talked about days like these. Matthew 24:7-8 says, "For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. But all these things are only the beginning of the birth pains." And Luke 21:11 adds, "There will be great earthquakes, and in various places famines and pestilences, and there will be terrors and great signs from heaven." Those old words now sound like they're coming alive in today's world. Of course, some say it's all just climate change, random coincidence. But when these events keep happening one after another, breaking every record, that explanation starts to waver. Ignoring the spiritual side of these things sometimes feels like trying to close your eyes to an obvious warning. After the tornado, what's left isn't just mangled cars. It's a cold message to a proud humanity. We don't control everything. This is a wake-up call, urging repentance and turning back while there's still time. And if cars flying like toys is just the start, what more will the darkening sky ahead swallow up? 2. A regular person pulls over at a rest stop because the storm up ahead is too dangerous. The gray sky rushed in like the darkness of hell, forcing folks to stop and hide in the growing terror that swelled up every second. One person on a quiet road had to pull over, not from being tired, but because a solid black wall was bearing down ahead. In that moment, we realize there are times when our survival instinct tells us clear. Going on means disappearing. Iowa, that peaceful rural Midwest area, suddenly became the center of nature's fury. This is where tornadoes often form. But this time, the air felt different, heavy and biting cold. Winds howled at speeds up to 150 miles per hour, turning the space around into invisible blades that cut right into skin and into a person's deepest fears. Even though it was still morning, the sky turned pitch black like a moonless night, swallowing all the light completely. Sheets of aluminum, road signs, metal roofing got ripped apart by the tornado and flew through the air like the fangs of a hunting monster. The roaring sound went on without stopping, deep and fierce, as if the whole sky was clenching its angry jaws, gobbling up everything for miles around. The person taking shelter could only hold their breath, feeling the ground shake lightly under their feet, heart pounding so hard it hurt. In those seconds, you don't need anyone to tell you how thin the line is between living and dying. When nature stops just getting worse and turns outright hostile, we suddenly feel how small and scary that makes us. The Bible has described scenes just like this. Revelation 16:18 says, "There were flashes of lightning, rumblings, peals of thunder, and a severe earthquake. No earthquake like it has ever occurred since mankind has been on earth." So tremendous was the quake. And Isaiah 29:6 warns, "You will be visited by the Lord Almighty, with thunder and earthquake and great noise, with storm and tempest and flames of a devouring fire." Those ancient words now mirror clearly in Iowa's gloomy sky. Weather experts call this extreme weather events, trying to fit it into charts and scientific models. But when the details match the Bible's prophecies in such a chilling way, those plain explanations don't comfort much anymore. There are things not just for measuring, but for recognizing and waking up to. Through the darkened sky and howling winds, it seems like the Lord is speaking, not in a gentle voice, but with power that makes people stop and listen. This is a warning about the coming day of judgment, sounding amid the black clouds and thunder. And if the wind monster roared like that, how will those huge cranes get torn apart in the next wave of wrath? 3. At a construction site, aluminum sheets get blown around. The savage wind ripped through a structure that seemed unbreakable, bending all human plans and turning steel into something fragile. It wasn't just a forecast or a what if anymore. That moment hit like a punch, showing the hard truth. Things people build can come crashing down in an instant. Houston, Texas, an industrial hub along the Gulf Coast, where concrete, steel, and modern engineering were thought to be tough enough to hold up. But this storm didn't play by the usual rules. Winds ramped up to 180 miles per hour, sweeping across the ground like an invisible saw blade, testing every weld, every support beam, every bit of faith in man-made strength. Aluminum panels from roofing and walls tore loose, spinning in the air like dry leaves in a whirlwind. Then something nobody expected happened. 2 huge cranes, each weighing up to 500 tons, got lifted by the wind and flipped over as easily as feathers. Metal crashed and snapped, making loud, piercing noises that sounded like the earth itself groaning as its limits got shattered. In the middle of all that, it's hard not to feel a chill. Machines that stood for power and progress suddenly looked completely helpless. Seeing it makes you realize one thing clearly: not everything is under human control, no matter how far technology goes. The Bible talks about signs like this. Joel 2:30 says, "I will show wonders in the heavens and on the earth, blood, fire, and columns of smoke." And Luke 21:25 goes on to warn, "There will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars, and on the earth nations will be in anguish and perplexity at the roaring and tossing of the sea." Those pictures aren't just on the page anymore, they're right there in the twisted steel and dust. Some folks say this is just the result of pollution, of humans wrecking the climate. That sounds reasonable enough, but when winds go beyond natural limits, when structures built to handle the worst fall so easily, a bigger question comes up. Could there be a greater power touching the foundations of the world? Those fallen cranes don't just leave rubble behind, they leave a serious reminder. The foundations we're so proud of can shake at any time. This is a call to turn back and wake up before the end times come without warning. And if cranes can topple like that, how will people caught in the next storm get swept away? 4. A group of people walking through a storm experience extremely strong winds. The fierce wind rushed in like a hunting animal, without warning, leaving no way out, wiping away all traces of life on the coastal streets. In that moment, a group of folks going about their everyday lives suddenly found themselves thrown right into the heart of the storm, where every step turned into a real struggle just to stay alive. No more spectators, no safe distance, just people facing the chasing power head-on. Miami, Florida, the city of warm sunshine and the ocean, suddenly changed beyond recognition. The ocean winds picked up speed to 160 miles per hour, howling through the tall buildings, tearing apart the city's order and turning the streets into a chaotic battlefield. The sea and the wind seemed to team up, pushing the city into a challenge that no preparedness plan could fully cover. From a distance, those huge styrofoam containers on heavy 10-ton trucks got ripped open, broke formation, and flew scattered for miles like a flock of panicked birds. The wind whipped relentlessly, sweeping up everything in its path, from signs and barriers to things that seemed harmless. People got pushed sideways, struggling like dry leaves, clinging to anything still standing in the growing fury. In the middle of that scene, it's hard not to pause and think. Steps that used to feel steady suddenly seem fragile, and that familiar sense of safety just falls apart. Watching those folks trying to keep their balance against the fierce wind, you realize that sometimes nature's power doesn't just test our bodies, it strips away human pride. The Bible describes that kind of power in words you can't mistake. Psalm 107:25 says, "For he commandeth and raiseth the stormy wind, which lifteth up the waves thereof." And Matthew 24:29 warns, "The sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken." Those words ring out like a living explanation for the scene playing out in the coastal city. Some say it's all just the result of climate change, of the environment hurt by people. That view sounds familiar. But when the wind blows away every normal measure, when the power goes beyond what's predicted, the question about the deeper meaning of these events can't be pushed aside. Isn't this maybe not just a consequence, but a warning? The wind passes, leaving behind not just destruction, it leaves a serious message. Some things need to be washed clean. Some paths need to be corrected. The Lord is sweeping away sin, warning about the last day coming faster than many think. And when everything has been swept away like that, what will the next camera footage show about how terrible the shaking of heaven and earth will be? 5. A camera captures the incredible power of a storm in America. It didn't start with the usual thunder. Instead, it was an invisible crash between sky and earth, strong enough to shatter the calm air. The security camera shook hard as rain, and wind slammed down like an earthquake from above, signaling something way beyond human control. In New Orleans, Louisiana, that low-lying area always vulnerable to storms, nature seemed to change its tune. Rain poured down at 10 inches an hour, not just falling, but dumping straight onto the ground. Familiar streets started shaking, not from traffic, but from the huge pressure on the earth below. Just seconds later, the footage showed the ground jolting in waves, like a 7 earthquake spreading out. House walls trembled, streetlights swayed, and the roar of wind and rain filled everything. There was no longer any line between a storm and an earthquake, just one combined force showing its full strength. What really gives people chills isn't just the pictures, but the steady rhythm of the shaking, as if some giant hand was gripping the world and giving it a hard shake to wake it up. The camera didn't exaggerate or add effects, yet every frame carried the feeling that something bigger than a normal disaster was happening. The Bible described this kind of power exactly. Revelation 11:19 says, "God's temple in heaven was opened. There were flashes of lightning, rumblings, peals of thunder, an earthquake, and a severe hailstorm." And Ezekiel 13:13 warns, "In my wrath I will unleash a violent wind, great hailstones, and torrents of rain to destroy." When you put those words next to the shaking images on the screen, The match is chilling to think about. Of course, science calls it an extreme storm, a term that sounds like it explains everything. But when wind and rain don't just destroy things, they actually make the ground shake. When the strength goes beyond the usual patterns, the question about the spiritual meaning can't be brushed aside so easily. In the end, what lingers isn't just the damage or the numbers, it's the feeling that the world is being shaken on purpose, like a reminder of the limitless power of the Creator. And as long as sky and earth keep trembling like this, what will the next strange sound from heaven announce? 6. Strange sounds in the storm. It wasn't the wind or the rain that made people stop in their tracks right then. It was a sound that didn't belong in the world we know. Right in the middle of that howling storm, the air suddenly got torn open by this weird dragging noise, cold, harsh, and heavy, like something huge was scratching at the sky. Just imagine if we were standing there. Wouldn't our hearts slow down from pure fear? Kansas sits right in the heart of Tornado Alley, where folks are used to twisters and angry skies. But that day, things felt different. Winds hit 190 miles an hour, with low clouds hugging the ground and pressing the air thick like molten metal. What really froze everyone, though, wasn't the wind's power. It was that odd sound that came and went, brief, but enough to stick with you. That sound wasn't like thunder, and it sure wasn't the usual clanging of metal. It came out like a long, drawn-out groan, then cut off sharp, leaving a heavy silence that gave you chills. Goosebumps rose on your arms, because it felt like someone had just whispered something, but not with words, just raw power. In the Bible, there are parts that describe the Lord not with pictures, but with sounds. Psalm 29 doesn't talk about strong winds or blazing fire. It stresses, "The voice of the Lord is over the waters." The voice of the Lord is powerful and majestic. And in Revelation 10, that sound is compared to a lion's roar, strong enough to wake up 7 thunders. When you put those words next to this mysterious noise, it's hard to call it just some random coincidence. Some sound experts say strong winds can create illusions of noise when air hits landforms or metal structures. It sounds reasonable, but if it's only physics, why do all the witnesses describe the same deep fear, like someone seeing right into their soul? Science can measure frequencies, but it can't measure that shiver in your spirit. Maybe that sound wasn't meant to wreck homes, but to wake people up, not with overwhelming sights, but with a call that makes your heart pause, forcing you to wonder, how are we living in front of the one who made the whole sky? And if it truly was a warning roar from above, then once it's echoed through the storm winds, what final thing in this world will the coming angry floods sweep away? 7. The quiet sloping road of the town has become an angry flood. No one in that town woke up thinking the familiar slope in front of their house would turn into a monster. The morning started like any other day, until the road trembled a bit, and then the roar of water came thundering from up high, signaling something unstoppable rushing down. In North Carolina, in the usually peaceful Appalachian Hill Country, water suddenly broke through all the normal boundaries. The flood moved at about 30 miles an hour, rising up to 20 feet, pouring straight down the hillside into the town like an unleashed waterfall. In just minutes, the familiar landscape was wiped out, replaced by a muddy, deadly torrent. What shocked the witnesses wasn't just the amount of water, but how it moved. The sloping road turned into a raging river, sweeping away cars, snapping fences, tearing up house foundations. The water roared and swirled fiercely, described as stronger than Niagara Falls, like a wild animal let loose from its chains. Seeing that sight, it's hard not to think of those ancient words that were written down long ago. Amos 9:5 said ahead of time, "The Lord God of hosts is he that toucheth the earth, and it shall melt. It riseth up wholly as a flood, like the river of Egypt, and shall be drowned." And in Psalm 93:3-4, that power is stressed. The floods have lifted up their voice. The Lord on high is mightier than the noise of many waters. Those words suddenly feel chillingly real. The hydrology experts quickly gave the usual explanation: flash flood from heavy rain plus steep terrain. That sounds reasonable, but it leaves an uncomfortable question open. Why are these events getting more violent, more frequent, and matching up so strangely with the series of warnings in the Bible? Are we too quick to dismiss something beyond our measuring models? That flood didn't just carry away things. It carried away the sense of security people had clung to for so long. It exposed how fragile everything built by human hands is, reminding us that in one moment, the familiar order can collapse completely. This isn't just a disaster. It's a strong reminder, forcing humanity to wake up. And when the water recedes, leaving behind mud, wreckage, and heavy silence, a bigger question starts to take shape. If this is the final piece of the picture, then when the flood has swept everything away, what terrible message from above is waiting to be revealed? When you put those 7 moments side by side, they're no longer just scattered news stories flashing across the screen. They fit together into one moving picture, a picture where power from above keeps coming down hard and fast, without giving folks a chance to catch their breath. From Dallas, where a tornado ripped apart a parking lot, to Iowa, plunged into darkness in the middle of the day, then Houston, shaken by steel flying everywhere, Miami swept clean by raging winds, New Orleans jolted like an earthquake hit it, Kansas hearing that eerie roaring sound, and finally North Carolina swallowed up by floodwaters, one after another, no breaks, no mercy. What's really scary isn't just the destruction, it's the rhythm of it all. One storm ends, and the next one starts, like drum beats building up to something big. Each event looks different, but they all speak the same language: wind, water, noise, shaking. It's as if nature itself is singing together in a dark, heavy symphony, and we're just helpless folks in the audience. Looking back, you start to see an invisible thread connecting them. It's not random that these things happen so close together, stronger than usual, in crowded places that stand for modern American strength. America, the country we thought nothing could touch, has become the stage for signs from heaven, where all our technology and power suddenly look pretty small. And right now, I think most of us feel something familiar yet strange, the feeling of being woken up. Have you noticed how this picture looks a lot like what was described thousands of years ago? In Matthew 24:7-8, Jesus warned, "For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are but the beginning of the birth pains." The beginning of the birth pains. Not the end, but the start of something even harder. It doesn't stop there. The picture in Revelation adds even more chilling depth. Chapters 6 and 8 talk about seals being opened and trumpets sounding, bringing earthquakes, storms, and chaos all over the world. These aren't just separate disasters. They're steps in a process, pushing humanity closer to the edge. When you place those 7 recent moments inside that bigger picture, they suddenly feel eerily familiar. We often hear that this is just climate change, natural cycles, or statistical flukes, but the Bible never denies that nature runs on laws. What the Bible stresses is who holds the controls over those laws. Matthew 24-29 goes on to say, "The sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken." When the foundations get shaken, it's not just physical things. It's people's trust in their own control. Here's something worth stopping to think about. If this were only weather, why does it feel so much like a warning? Why do we feel smaller and smaller in front of nature these days? And why do those ancient prophecies ring so clear in today's world? Maybe we're not just watching the news, we're witnessing a message. Those 7 moments are like 7 bells ringing. Each one rings in a different place, in a different way, but they all have the same purpose: to wake up sleeping consciences. They're not meant to destroy everything right away. They're meant to warn. That's how the Bible usually describes God's actions. He warns before he judges. In Revelation 3:3, there's a sober reminder: "Remember then what you received and heard. Keep it and repent." If you will not wake up, I will come like a thief. No advance notice, no delay. The signs are only for those willing to open their eyes and look. And those 7 events we just saw, in that light, feel more like a final call than a coincidence. We live in a time when everything moves so fast. News stories come and go, pictures get forgotten, feelings wear thin, but some moments aren't meant to be ignored. Those storms didn't just tear up buildings, they tore apart the comfortable illusion of safety we've been holding on to. When nature rises up, all our titles and achievements don't mean much. And now the full picture is coming into focus. It's not just America. The whole world is entering what the Bible calls the last days. Matthew 24 isn't only about disasters, it's about them increasing, coming faster, and becoming unstoppable. What we're seeing today has all those marks. Time isn't stretching out as long as people think. Maybe you're wondering what we're supposed to do in the middle of all this. The Bible doesn't call for panic. It calls for staying awake, not fear, but repentance, turning back, and getting our hearts ready. Because when the signs are this clear, staying silent isn't neutral anymore. It's a choice. 7 moments, 1 picture. A picture that isn't meant to entertain or shock. It's meant to wake us up. If this truly is the beginning of the birth pains, then it also means humanity is running out of time. And when the last bell rings, there won't be any more chances to ask why. When we look back at everything that's happened, we don't see them as separate news stories anymore, but as a steady stream of warnings running all through. From tornadoes and fierce storms, to earthquakes shaking things up, and floods sweeping everything away, America is right in the middle of a chain of events that's way beyond anything people can control. These aren't just natural disasters. They're signs of anger from above, ringing out clear in these last days. All this makes folks slow down and think. When the things we thought were rock solid start shaking, and when science and technology can't calm our fears anymore, what's left is questions about our spiritual lives. The Bible warned that signs like these would come, not to destroy everything right away, but to wake up hearts that have been asleep. We're living in days when time isn't as plentiful as it used to be. Every storm that passes, every rumble from the sky, feels like a reminder that chances don't last forever. This is the time for people to repent, to turn back to the Lord, not out of fear, but because we see the truth that real protection and hope are found only in Him. A lot of folks might choose to ignore it, keep thinking everything will just blow over, but Bible history shows that warnings always come before judgment starts. When the signs are this plain, ignoring them isn't harmless anymore. Time is running short, and the choices we make today matter forever. If you're reading this, maybe that final warning is echoing for you. Will you listen, or let it sweep you away? The question isn't meant to scare you. It's an invitation to think it over, to take a good look at the path you're on before the door closes without any more notice. If this has given you something to think about, please hit like to support the channel, share it so others can be warned too, and subscribe so you don't miss the next ones. Thank you for sticking around to the end. I hope what's been shared here stays with you long enough to lead to real change.
Good evening. 4 people have now died from the flu in Monroe County so far.
Slop. Slop is used to define creepy, zany, and demonstrably fake content.
Most of the attention that's been focused on the Trump administration's deportation.
Meg, before I let you go, I want to talk about a new tourism proposal. The Trump administration says the
only appropriate punishment is the death penalty.
New this morning, Americans getting their first look at how much they will have to pay for health care coverage under
Greatest public health challenges of our time. Our nation's mental health is in crisis.
This is breaking news. December 2025. America isn't calm and peaceful like it used to be anymore. Bad news keeps coming in every single day. Disease spreading fast, the economy shaking, violence getting worse, and technology slipping out of control. Everything's happening all at once, piling up, total chaos, like the world's caught in a whirlwind with no way out. Do you feel like time is moving unusually fast these days? So why is all this happening right now? Is it just random chance? Or are these pieces starting to fit together with ancient prophecies from the Bible? Jesus once spoke about birth pains, the signs that come before humanity's decisive moment. And this uneasy feeling in our hearts today, is it really for no reason? In today's video, we'll go through the 10 hottest news stories in America right now, based on official data and reports, to see what's really going on behind the headlines. Is this the final warning, or do we still have time to wake up? So please, don't miss a thing. Come along with me as we dive deeper and look at each one in detail, starting right now. I won't keep you waiting. Let's begin with the first story. 1. Flu surge hits hard after Thanksgiving. Over 3 million cases and thousands of deaths. Right after Thanksgiving, while planes were still landing and highways were jammed with cars, an invisible wave started spreading across America. News reports came fast and furious, numbers jumping by the day and even by the hour. It felt like time was speeding up. The new flu strain, subclade K, didn't make a big noise when it showed up, but it spread so quickly that the whole health system had to gear up to handle it. You could sense the worry in the air, even without turning on every news channel. According to the latest CDC report from early December 2025, the U.S. had seen nearly 3.2 million flu cases, over 30,000 hospitalizations, and about 1,800 deaths in a short time. Lab test positivity rates climbed to 5 to 8%, and states like New York, Texas, and Florida hit very high alert levels. When you hear those numbers repeated on TV over and over, that old heavy feeling from the pandemic years comes rushing back. In times like this, Matthew 24:7 hits close to home in a scary way. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. The Bible doesn't say these things happen one at a time. They pile up, all together, one after another. Sickness isn't just a medical issue. It brings fear, unrest, and that quiet sense of how fragile life is that folks today carry deep inside. As experts argue about vaccines, climate change, or regular flu cycles, Luke 21:11 rings out like a chilling reminder. There will be great earthquakes, famines, and pestilences in various places, and fearful events, and great signs from heaven. These words weren't meant to scare people into panic, but to wake us up in moments when it's easiest to tell ourselves everything's fine. You're living in a time when those prophecies don't feel like distant symbols anymore. A lot of folks say this is just a tougher than usual flu season, that science will get it under control eventually. But since COVID, these big outbreaks have come faster, hit harder, and happen more often. Revelation 6-8 paints a picture of the pale horse. Its rider was named Death, and Hades was following close behind him. They were given power over a fourth of the earth, to kill by sword, famine, and plague, and by the wild beasts of the earth. That mysterious image feels coldly real when you look at today's death statistics. In the middle of all this chaotic news, many people are slowing down, thinking more deeply about life and death. Those numbers aren't just cold facts. They stand for families torn apart, empty homes, and quiet prayers in the night. This isn't just another flu wave. It's a clear warning that the birth pains have started, and time is moving a lot faster than we're used to. And as the flu keeps spreading, another sign of the end times is quietly rising, more subtle and dangerous. Deception spreading through AI technology, where the line between real and fake is blurring a little more every day. 2. Merriam-Webster picks slop as the hottest word of 2025, highlighting all the junk AI content that's everywhere. After the pandemic wave, another threat is quietly creeping into our daily lives, not loud, but slipping in all over the place. At the end of 2025, Merriam-Webster announced slop as the word of the year, and just that choice alone made a lot of folks sit up and take notice. Slop isn't some harmless trend. It describes the low-quality junk content churned out in huge amounts by AI, flooding social media, news sites, videos, and pictures. You can really feel that mess every time you pick up your phone. 2025 marked an explosion like never before in generative AI. Billions of pieces of content get pumped out every day, so fast that people don't have time anymore to figure out what's real and what's fake. Deep fake videos, phony articles, made-up images keep popping up, piling on top of each other, burying the truth under sheer volume. In that flood, you don't even have to go looking for lies. They come find you first. According to Merriam-Webster's announcement on December 15, 2025, lookups for slop shot way up, with the clear definition: digital content of low quality that is produced usually in quantity by means of artificial intelligence. Big news outlets like CNBC, CBS News, Axios, and Ars Technica all ran stories on it, seeing it as a sign of worldwide worry that AI is ruining reliable information. When truth gets buried under piles of junk content, people's trust starts to crack. In that kind of world, 2 Thessalonians 2:11 rings out like a chilling explanation for our times. And for this cause, God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie. The Bible doesn't say the lie comes with a big shout, but through a power that makes people believe wrong without even realizing it. AI, with its speed and scale like nothing before, is turning into the perfect tool for that kind of delusion. As fake content gets dressed up more and more cleverly, Matthew 24:24 becomes scarier than ever. For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall shew great signs and wonders, insomuch that, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. These days, those signs and wonders aren't just miracles. They're in images, videos, and information created to fool our feelings. You're living in a time when seeing and hearing with your own eyes and ears isn't a sure guarantee of truth anymore. A lot of folks think this is just tech progress, that AI makes creating things faster and easier. But 2 Timothy 4:3-4 warned us plain and clear. For the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine. They shall turn away their ears from the truth, and shall be turned unto fables. When slop floods everything, people get used to stuff that's easy to hear and watch, even if it's empty and wrong. In the middle of all that chaotic information out there, there's only one steady anchor that never changes. God's word isn't generated by AI, can't be manipulated, can't be faked. While the world's truth gets twisted day by day, the Bible is still a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. And from this spreading digital deception, another sign of the end times keeps showing up: fear and quiet oppression hanging over immigrant communities. 3. More than 1 in 5 immigrants in America fear arrest or deportation since January 2025. Just when the worries about digital scams hadn't even settled down yet, another kind of fear has become clearer. It's not on a screen, but slipping right into everyday life. You see it in hurried steps, in watchful eyes, in the unusual quiet in immigrant neighborhoods. Since the start of 2025, the mood in many communities across the U.S. has changed. It's heavier, more tense, like someone just tightened an invisible grip on their lives. You'll notice that shift in local news reports, in stories passed around by word of mouth. Under Trump's second term, immigration enforcement policies have been stepped up strongly and kept going. Checks, arrests, and deportations aren't rare anymore. They've become a constant worry. Many families live on high alert, staying in more, changing their daily routines, just to avoid running into enforcement officers. The fear doesn't explode loudly. It spreads slowly but steadily, digging deep into people's minds. A big survey done by KFF together with the New York Times, released in November 2025, paints a clear picture of it. 22% of immigrants said they personally know someone who's been arrested or deported. 41% are worried about themselves or a family member, and 40% admit their mental health has been hurt by it. Millions of people change their behavior every day because of fear of ICE, and that unease has become part of the daily rhythm. In this setting, Matthew 24:9 rings out not as a threat, but as a mirror for our times. Then they will hand you over to be persecuted, and will kill you. You will be hated by all nations because of my name. These words aren't just about physical violence. They also speak to isolation, discrimination, and the heavy social pressure on groups seen as different. When fear is used as a tool for control, freedom starts to shrink bit by bit. That shrinking is also reflected in Revelation 13:7, where power is described as reaching over every tribe, tongue, people, and nation. This isn't the picture of one single border. It's a global trend toward more control. You're watching a time when power isn't just enforced through laws, but by planting feelings of helplessness and fear in people's hearts. A lot of folks think this is simply needed law enforcement to protect national security. But Daniel 7:25 talks about a power that will persecute the saints of the Most High, not mainly with swords at first, but with long-lasting and clever pressure. When people are forced to live in constant worry, trust in the world's systems gets tested to the limit. The Lord is showing us a period when freedom can be taken away quickly, and worldly safety turns fragile. In the middle of these changes, faith isn't placed in human power, but in the one who never changes. And from the fear in immigrant communities, another sign keeps becoming clearer. The government is starting to expand control through technology, moving humanity one step closer to full surveillance. 4. The Trump administration expands social media checks to 5 years for visa applications. If in the previous part, fear showed up through cautious steps and worried looks, this time the control comes quietly. No sirens, no handcuffs, just a blank space on the visa form asking you to list all your online activity from the past 5 years. Those seemingly harmless lines are opening a new door where private life gets weighed against government power. Starting early in 2025, with national security front and center, control policies started moving away from physical borders and deeper into the online world. It's not just about who you are anymore. They want to know what you've thought, what you've said, and who you've connected with over the years. The checking goes beyond actions now and touches personal thoughts and views, things that used to be part of inner freedom. By December 2025, the Trump administration officially expanded the requirement to review 5 years of social media history for many visa types. Tourists from 42 countries in the visa waiver program, people applying for H-1B work visas, and even international students are all affected. CNN, NPR, Reuters, and BBC all reported on it at once, calling it the biggest expansion yet, impacting millions around the world who want to come to America. What's striking isn't just the scale, but the nature of the surveillance. When every old post, like, or comment can become part of your evaluation, people start censoring themselves. Do you still dare to say what you believe, knowing that 5 years later, it might decide whether your future door opens or not? The silence now isn't from having nothing to say, it's from fear of being remembered. In this setting, Revelation 13:16-17 whispers like a chilling warning about a system where joining everyday life gets conditioned. No one can buy or sell without that mark isn't just a physical image. It's a symbol of depending on total control. When data becomes the key, freedom gets squeezed into invisible algorithms. Daniel 12:4 talks about a time when knowledge will increase, but along with it comes complexity and hiding. Technology grows so fast that it's hard to tell what's helpful and what's a chain. Folks say this is just needed for security, but the Bible warns that the final system won't just protect, it'll sort, exclude, and control. The Lord is showing a slow but clear process, where freedom gets worn down bit by bit in the name of safety. In this growing web of surveillance, only those who trust in Him will find real protection. And from this invisible control, another sign is waiting ahead, the cold rise of death through more death sentences. 5. Executions in the U.S. hit a near record of almost 50 inches, 2025, mostly in Florida. It's no longer just cold numbers or a screen full of stats. This whole thing starts with the heavy thud of a steel door slamming shut. In 2025, America saw a clear comeback of state-sanctioned death. It wasn't loud or flashy, but steady, like an invisible countdown clock ticking away. Each news report about an execution popped up briefly and then faded, but the echo hung around a long time in the air of our society. As conservative states tightened up on carrying out death sentences all at once, the legal picture got tougher than ever. The reasons given were order, deterrence, justice for the victims. But in that flow, the line between justice and getting numb to taking a human life started to blur. Strictness wasn't the exception anymore. It became the usual rhythm. According to updates from NPR and The Washington Post, in mid-December 2025, the U.S. recorded 46 to 48 executions, the highest in 15 years. Florida alone made up nearly 40% with 18 to 19, a number never seen since 1976. With strong pushing from Governor Ron DeSantis, death sentences moved faster, procedures got shortened, and death came sooner than any time for reflection. In that setting, Matthew 24:12 rings out like a sad explanation for these times. Because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. As society gets used to ending lives through the law, compassion doesn't vanish right away, but it cools off little by little until it doesn't shock anyone anymore. Revelation 6:4 paints the picture of the red horse, a symbol of violence and a loud killing. And power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, that they should kill one another. This isn't just war or street chaos, but when the law coldly and legally claims the right to take life. A lot of folks say it's necessary justice, the price for terrible crimes. But the Bible doesn't just talk about punishment. It talks about the value of life given by God. When death gets repeated enough, people start seeing it as just a routine, and that's the sign we're drifting from our original moral foundation. Humanity is entering a phase where life is taken lightly, and love grows cold, just like the prophecy said. From this legalized physical death, another sign is showing up clearer: widespread money troubles, wearing down the hope of millions day by day. 6. Congress refuses to extend Obamacare subsidies. Health insurance costs soar starting in 2026. There was no big bang, no dramatic announcement, just a slow, deep unease settling in. Toward the end of 2025, a lot of Americans started to feel something familiar slipping away: the peace of mind that comes with knowing you can get medical care when you need it. A quiet change was happening, not out on the streets, but behind closed doors in Congress. As 2026 came closer, that burden took on a clearer shape. The Obamacare subsidies weren't extended, and without any fanfare, health insurance costs went from manageable to something millions of families simply couldn't handle. For years, the extra subsidies put in place during the Biden years had quietly kept healthcare affordable for middle-class and lower-income folks. But when the end of 2025 passed without a vote to renew them, that fragile stability cracked fast. The policy fights happened up on Capitol Hill, but the real impact landed right at kitchen tables across the country. According to reports from NPR, NBC, and KFF, in December 2025, unless something changed at the last minute, millions of Americans would see their premiums double in just 1 year. Estimates put the number affected between 20 and 30 million people, forcing them to choose between healthcare, rent, or groceries. Choices nobody wants to make, but ones that were becoming all too common. Revelation 6:6 comes to mind as a chilling picture of end-time economics: a quart of wheat for a day's wages, and 3 quarts of barley for a day's wages. But do not harm the oil and wine. Prices shoot up, basic necessities become luxuries, and unfairness creeps in, as only some people can still afford a decent life. You might have skimmed past stories like this pretty quickly. They don't shock you right away. But when the actual bills show up in the mailbox, it feels completely different. A lot of folks started counting every penny, even thinking twice about going to the doctor, and that's when the worry really took shape. Matthew 24:7 ties right into this picture. And there will be famines in various places. Famine isn't just about running out of food. It's about not being able to get the basic things you need to survive. When healthcare turns into a privilege instead of a right, society moves one step closer to that prophecy. Some say this is just the usual budget cycle, normal party fighting. But the Bible doesn't talk about the political reasons. It talks about the end result: skyrocketing costs and people living with constant anxiety. You can feel that pressure spreading, even if it hasn't hit you directly yet. In the end, when material things get shaky, the Lord reminds us not to put our ultimate trust in the systems of this world. Out of these economic struggles, something deeper is starting to show itself. A spiritual crisis, where people lose their way amid growing uncertainty and fear. 7. Growing concerns over mental health, expanded support programs, but still not enough. America in 2025 isn't just stressed from the economy or politics. It's dealing with something even more dangerous. People's minds are wearing out in huge numbers. Millions are living with ongoing anxiety, constant sleeplessness, and feeling down without any big trigger to set it off. After the pandemic, society didn't collapse the way some feared, but it started cracking from the inside. Schools added more counseling rooms, workplaces put up posters about well-being, and mindfulness classes popped up everywhere. On the surface, it looks like progress, but the pace of life hasn't slowed down at all. People are encouraged to open up, while still being pushed to handle more every day. Data from KFF and the CDC in 2025 shows an uncomfortable truth. Between 18 and 20% of students have used mental health services at school, but the system is always short on staff, time, and real depth. Cases of depression and anxiety among young people aren't just issues to watch anymore. They've become the background for a whole generation growing up under constant pressure. When Matthew 24:8 talks about the beginning of birth pains, it's not picturing one big shock, but ongoing contractions that simmer, repeat, and drag on until exhaustion. That's exactly the rhythm in people's minds today. Not breaking all at once, but stretched so tight that even a small bump could shatter it. Conversations are getting shorter, people avoid eye contact longer, and sighs happen more often than laughs. Some folks don't even know why they're sad anymore. They just know they're not at ease. That feeling is spreading, without any virus or direct contact needed. 2 Timothy 3:1 puts it straight: difficult times. No fancy words, no grand pictures, just a heavy reality hanging over everything. This hardship isn't measured by money or wars, but by how much mental strength people have left when they're stuck in uncertainty and comparison for too long. A lot of folks think adding more experts, more meds, more programs will fix it all. Those things help, sure, but they're like patching a fabric that's worn out from the threads inside. The Bible sees the problem on a deeper level. The human soul is being pulled away from its original purpose, from its connection to the one who made it. Jesus didn't start by telling people to get it together. He started by offering them rest. That's a kind of healing that goes against the world's push for productivity. When people have no place to set down their mental burdens, they'll collapse before their bodies even get tired. And when the collective mind becomes as fragile as glass, the next bumps will cause much bigger damage. From this mental exhaustion, another wave is clearly forming. The economy is starting to wobble, and visible unrest is about to follow right behind the invisible hurts. 8. Unemployment rate rises to 4.6%, highest in 4 years. The U.S. economy at the end of 2025, with the job market slowing down, and this time, it's not just talk. That 4.6% figure just showed up in the official report and made the markets pause for a bit. No need for guesses or long explanations. Unemployment in America has hit its highest level in 4 years, right as we're heading into 2026. After months of sluggish growth starting back in 2024, the job market is starting to show some clear cracks. Businesses are being more cautious about hiring, plans to expand are on hold, and even jobs that used to feel secure aren't completely safe anymore. The upbeat mood from the post-recovery days has given way to more careful planning and playing it safe. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, released on the 16th of December 2025, the unemployment rate climbed to 4.6%, while the economy only added 64,000 new jobs in November, way below what people expected. CNN and the New York Times both called it an early warning sign of a recession starting to take shape, even if it hasn't been officially named yet. These numbers don't stand alone. They follow a string of pressures from before: high living costs, rising health insurance, cuts to benefits, and now the growing risk of job loss. When income isn't steady anymore, all those personal plans start to feel shaky. The economy isn't crashing right away, but it's starting to make folks lose that sense of security. Revelation 6:6 once described a time when prices become a heavy burden that doesn't match the effort put into work. A quart of wheat for a denarius isn't just about famine. It's a picture of the imbalance between labor and survival. When jobs slow down but costs don't drop, the economic squeeze starts to tighten. People are getting more careful with spending, quieter about the future, and more cautious with decisions that used to seem routine. No need to panic. Just watching long enough shows that the rhythm of society has changed. James 5:1-3 offers a completely different view from the usual economic reports. Come now, you rich. Your gold and silver are corroded. In times of upheaval, piled up wealth isn't a foolproof shield anymore. Things that seemed like long-term security can lose value fast when the system gets shaky. A lot of folks think this is just a familiar economic cycle, and jobs will come back soon. But the Bible doesn't deny cycles. It points out what they mean. At some point, the worldly foundations people rely on show their limits. That's when the true value of life really comes into focus. This rise in unemployment isn't just about money. It's a test of where people put their trust. When jobs aren't certain anymore, deeper questions come up. What really keeps life steady? And amid these economic pressures, another reality keeps going alongside it and getting clearer. Violence in society hasn't gone down, and it's waiting for the next moment to flare up. 9. Gun violence keeps rising, with hundreds of mass shootings in 2025. It's persistent and shows no sign of going away. These aren't just isolated events that shock everyone and then fade. Mass shootings have become a regular part of the daily news, showing up as steadily as the weather report, gas prices, or other familiar parts of modern life. Though lower than the peak periods, stats from the Gun Violence Archive, updated through December 2025, show America still had around 350 to 400 mass shootings that year, counting incidents where 4 or more people were shot. Thousands of lives continue to be lost or changed forever by guns, happening in schools, neighborhoods, shopping malls, and places that used to feel safe. The debate over gun control goes on without end. One side stresses the right to own guns. The other calls for stricter laws. But in the middle of all the arguments, the number of victims keeps adding up. Violence doesn't wait for political agreement, and new reports keep coming one after another, like case files that never get closed. When violence repeats long enough, society's reaction changes too. Incidents that once stopped the whole country in its tracks now get just a few minutes on the evening news, then quickly get pushed down by the next tragedy. This emotional numbness spreads quietly, but it's dangerous because it signals something deeper going on beneath the surface. The Bible describes that state clearly. Matthew 24:12 says, "Because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold." It's not just that violent acts are rising, but that the collective conscience is slowly wearing away when evil no longer shocks like it used to. That picture reminds us of Noah's time in Genesis 6:11. The earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence. Violence isn't just a social problem. It's a sign that moral order is rotting from the inside. When human life is taken lightly, society heads down a dangerous path. Many folks think this is just a matter of culture, laws, or mental health, and that technical fixes will eventually work. But the Bible doesn't see violence as something temporary. It places it in the bigger picture of the end times, when people drift further from God and moral standards get turned upside down. In that view, true peace doesn't come from laws or political deals. The Bible says only the return of Jesus Christ will end the cycle of violence, when justice and life are fully restored. Until then, the world will keep seeing these warning signs one after another. And while physical violence hasn't even settled yet, a new kind of control, quieter but more widespread, is slowly taking shape in the digital world. 10. Growing worries about digital privacy and AI are causing millions of people to hold back on sharing their data. One thing is changing real fast in 2025. Folks no longer feel like the online world is a safe place. Every search, every text, every photo can stick around longer than the person who made it. And that fear is spreading quicker than any new tech. AI is growing at a speed we've never seen before in 2025, working its way deep into jobs, schools, healthcare, banking, and even personal lives. At the same time, surveys from Pew Research and ExpressVPN show that 60 to 80% of Americans are worried about AI invading their privacy. Millions are starting to turn off tracking, cut back on sharing data, or pull away from platforms they once thought they couldn't live without. What's worth noticing is that this worry didn't come from one big incident. It built up, bit by bit, through every software update, every long set of terms and conditions, every feeling of being known too well, without ever saying a word. AI doesn't have to force anyone. It just needs enough data to paint a picture of you that's more accurate than you might think. This is where we hit a very human moment. Convenience is running straight into freedom. There are questions nobody says out loud, but most of us have thought about them at least once. If one day every purchase, every trip, every choice needs approval from some system, where's the line between helping and controlling? And once that line starts to blur, is there any way back? The Bible has long described a scene that many used to think was way off in the future. Revelation 13:16-17 talks about a time when no one can buy or sell without having the allowed mark. That's not just a religious picture. It's a warning about a total control system where being part of society depends on approval from one central power. Along the same lines, Daniel 12:4 says that knowledge will increase. This explosion of knowledge isn't seen as bad in itself, but it comes with the ability to manage, sort, and watch over things on a global scale. When knowledge isn't neutral anymore, it becomes a tool for shaping how people act without any force. A lot of folks point out that technology is still saving lives, connecting people, and making the world run better. That's true. But the Bible doesn't deny progress. It warns about the direction progress takes when people put all their trust in systems instead of in the Creator. History always shows the same thing. The problem isn't the tool, it's who ends up holding the real control. Maybe that's why more and more people are choosing to slow down and keep a piece of their privacy, like holding on to one last bit of breathing room for the soul. Not everyone can put a name to that uneasy feeling, but it's there in every small choice, every pause before clicking agree to share one more thing. In the big picture of these 10 signs, this isn't some loud alarm, it's a quiet, steady whisper. The Bible reminds us that in those times, only those who belong to the Lord are truly protected. And maybe preparing spiritually isn't some far-off idea anymore. It's something worth thinking about right now. And we've just gone through the 10 biggest events in America. Which one made you stop and think the hardest? The 10 news stories we just heard don't stand alone like random headlines that come and go. When you put them side by side, they form one clear, heavy picture that's worth thinking about. A picture of where America and the whole world are headed. It's not just about problems with technology, the economy, or society. It's something deeper, a shift in the very foundation of right and wrong, faith and conscience. Things that used to seem strange are now normal, and the values that once held society together are slowly being pushed aside. The Bible didn't say these things to scare us, but to wake us up. When the signs start piling up, lies spreading everywhere, violence growing, control tightening, fear creeping into every home and every heart, it's not by chance. God's word warned that these things would come like labor pains, signaling a decisive time in human history, not with loud trumpets or big drama, but quietly, clearly, and in a way no one can deny. The most important part of all this isn't how many % we get right in our analysis or whether we can guess exact dates. What matters more is how each of us responds to what's happening around us. The Bible says it plainly. God doesn't want anyone to be lost. He wants everyone to turn back to Him and be saved. He's patient, waiting, holding the door of grace wide open right up to the last moment. But that door won't stay open forever. You might be watching this with all kinds of feelings: confusion, worry, doubt, or even just not caring much. But in a world that's getting shakier by the day, Jesus is still the one safe place that never changes. Today, right now, is still the day of salvation. You don't need fancy rituals or to be perfect. All it takes is a humble heart turning back to Him, putting your trust in the cross and what Jesus did to save us. If these news stories have made you pause and think, take a quiet moment to pray. Tell God what's weighing on your heart. Ask Him to guide you, protect you, and give you real peace. And if you'd like, leave a short prayer or an honest thought in the comments about the signs of these times. It's more than just commenting. It's a testimony and a way to connect with others who are seeking the truth too. Thank you for sticking with me to the end. If this helped you in any way, please share it so others can think about it too. And subscribe to the channel to keep walking through these topics together. May God bless you, keep you safe, and help you stand firm in your faith through these unsettled days.
Now, Chile has elected its most right-wing president in more than 3 decades.
A barrage of calls into the newsroom yesterday. Many of you wondering about a ring around the sun. Take a look.
Vehicles, 3 small cars, and that flyaway bus here near LAX. We're just
It seems like the world isn't moving slowly anymore like it used to. Time feels like it's speeding up, and every day brings changes that make folks uneasy. Wars, natural disasters, social chaos, and strange events keep happening, one after another. Almost like there's an invisible hand ringing a final warning bell. Do you feel that too? Jesus said in Matthew 24 that when these signs start piling up fast, it's the beginning of the birth pains. The book of Revelation pulls back the curtain on mysterious creatures, signs in the sky, and the whole creation shaking. Those words used to seem far off, but now they're echoing in real life. In this video, we'll look back at 7 recent events, not to scare anyone, but to wonder, how much longer do we have in this time of grace? Stick around, because what we're about to share might change the way you see the world from now on. All right, come along with me now as we hop on this journey to explore 7 events, 7 signs that the Lord is trying to warn humanity about the last days. Our first stop is 1. A strange sea creature that looks like something from another world. The ribbon worm. Down in the deep ocean, where sunlight hardly reaches, there are creatures that most folks never get to see. But lately, a short video has left millions of people stunned. It's a long, thin creature like a ribbon of silk, and when something touches it, a white, cloudy structure shoots out from its body, branching out all over like lightning ripping through the air. What we're seeing isn't just a sea animal. It's that chilling feeling down your spine, like something from the depths has just woken up. This creature is called a ribbon worm, a type of ribbon-like worm in the Nemertea group. They mostly live in tropical seas around Southeast Asia and the Pacific. Some kinds can grow longer than a bus, hiding under sand or in rock crevices. When they're bothered, they shoot out their proboscis, a slimy white weapon that's branched in a complicated way. It spreads out super fast, looking like the tree of life turned upside down. You can feel how odd it is, because that shape is so far from what we think of as normal in nature. Videos spreading on YouTube and TikTok show this happening in different places, from beaches in Indonesia to shallow waters in California. Same reaction, same weird shape, same feeling like it's from another world. We're living in a time when the deep sea isn't quiet anymore, and things that were hidden are starting to show up right in front of us. Revelation 9:1-3 once described a moment that gives you chills just like this. I saw a star that had fallen from the sky to the earth. It was given the key to the shaft of the abyss. When it opened the abyss, smoke rose out of it like the smoke from a huge furnace. And out of the smoke, locusts came down on the earth. The picture of the abyss being opened and strange creatures coming out of it makes you think of these odd things rising from the sea in our day. Revelation 13:1 goes on to say, I saw a beast coming up out of the sea. In the Bible, the sea isn't just water. It's a symbol of chaos, of powers that aren't tamed yet. Leviticus 11:10 also mentions creatures without fins or scales as unclean, like a warning that not everything from the deep sea fits into God's holy order. We used to read these verses and think they were far off, but today they hit closer to home than ever. But scientists tell us this is just biology, the result of evolution over millions of years. Yet you and I both know science explains the how, but not the why right now. When these images keep popping up, right alongside wars, natural disasters, and chaos around the world, it's hard to call it just a meaningless coincidence. For people of faith, this feels like a serious whisper. The abyss isn't sealed shut like it used to be. Things that were held back are now being let out, like a warning sign before the day of judgment. And when the sea starts speaking up, we know the story isn't ending there. Right here on land, other events are waiting, fiercer and more sudden, like the labor pains of the end times. 2. Bus accident carrying passengers near LAX Airport, Los Angeles, California. If the ocean has just spoken from the deep, then on land, chaos hits in a sudden and cold way. In the busy pace of life in America, where folks think everything is under control with technology and rules, one short moment is enough to make order fall apart. A passenger bus near LAX Airport crashed badly, leaving behind ambulance sirens, broken pieces, and shocked people who hadn't yet figured out what just happened. Los Angeles International Airport, LAX, is one of the busiest gateways in the world. Every day, thousands of shuttle buses line up one after another, carrying hopes, plans, and family reunions. The accident happened in the Westchester area, right next to the airport, where traffic is always heavy and time doesn't allow for any mistakes. But in just a split second, a normal trip turned into a disaster. The bus, carrying about 40 passengers, got into a chain collision with 2 other vehicles. The body was dented, windows shattered, luggage scattered on the road. At least 5 people were hurt, 2 taken to the hospital in serious condition. The scene was quickly blocked off, with flashing red and blue lights amid dust and panicked voices calling out. We see clearly how fragile people are, even in the heart of a modern superpower. Matthew 24:6-8 once warned about times like this. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. Nation will rise against nation. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are but the beginning of the birth pains. Those pains don't always come as big wars. Sometimes they show up as sudden disasters, without warning, stealing away peace in an instant. Luke 21:11 goes on to say, there will be great earthquakes, and in various places famines and pestilences, and there will be terrors, mass accidents,